Before we get into the story, leave a comment and let us know what city you're watching from. And don't forget to rate the story from 0 to 10 at the end. Enjoy the story. The Grand Meridian Hotel stood like a glass monument against the Los Angeles skyline, its 1,000 windows reflecting the twilight in shades of amber and rose. Inside, the annual tech industry gala was reaching its peak. Crystal glasses clinked, laughter echoed through marble corridors, and somewhere, a string quartet played something elegant and forgettable. Madison Cole stood near the champagne fountain, tugging at the hem of her cocktail dress, wondering for the 100th time why she'd agreed to come. She wasn't built for these events. Give her a spreadsheet or a software bug to fix, and she was fearless. But put her in heels and a room full of executives, and she felt like an imposter playing dress-up. "You look like you're planning an escape route," a voice said beside her.
Madison turned to find her colleague, Jennifer, grinning with a glass of wine in each hand. She offered one to Madison. "Relax, it's just a party." Madison accepted the glass with a tight smile. Just a party. Right. Except her boyfriend, Tyler, was supposed to meet her here an hour ago, and he still hadn't shown up. No text, no call. Typical. Jennifer leaned in conspiratorially. "I heard Carter Hastings is here tonight." Madison's stomach did an unwelcome flip at the name. Carter Hastings, CEO of Hastings Technologies, her boss's boss's boss. The man whose cold, sharp gaze could slice through a quarterly report like a scalpel. She'd only met him twice, both times in passing, and both times she'd felt like a mouse being studied by a hawk. "Why would I care?" Madison muttered, taking a long sip of wine. Jennifer laughed. "Because every woman in this building cares. Have you seen him? That man could make a boardroom presentation feel like foreplay."
Madison rolled her eyes, but she couldn't deny the truth in it. Carter Hastings was absurdly attractive in that untouchable, tailored suit, billionaire kind of way. Dark hair always perfectly styled, jawline that could cut glass, eyes the color of a winter storm, and completely, utterly out of her league. Not that it mattered. She had Tyler. Sort of. Maybe. If he ever bothered to show up. Her phone buzzed. Finally. But when she looked at the screen, her heart sank. Tyler's message was short and infuriating. "Can't make it. Work thing." "Sorry, babe." Madison stared at the words, her jaw tightening. Work thing. He was a freelance graphic designer who worked from his couch. What possible work thing could he have at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night? She shoved her phone back into her purse, her chest burning with a mix of anger and humiliation. Jennifer noticed the shift in her expression. "Let me guess. Tyler bailed?" Madison didn't answer, but her silence was confirmation enough. Jennifer sighed. "Maddie, you deserve better than a guy who treats you like an afterthought." Maybe she did. But right now, she just wanted to get through this night, go back to her hotel room, and pretend the whole evening hadn't happened. The gala had been organized as part of a 3-day tech conference, and most of the out-of-town attendees, including Madison, had been given rooms at the Grand Meridian. It was a perk of working for a company as successful as Hastings Technologies, even if she was just a mid-level software engineer buried somewhere in the organizational chart. By 11, Madison had had enough. She slipped out of the ballroom, her heels clicking against the polished floors as she made her way to the elevators. The hotel lobby was quieter now, just a few guests milling about, their voices low and lazy with expensive alcohol. Madison pressed the button for the 20th floor and leaned against the elevator wall, closing her eyes. She was tired of pretending to enjoy networking, tired of waiting for Tyler to act like he cared, tired of feeling invisible. When the elevator dinged, She stepped out into the dimly lit hallway and walked toward her room. Room 2047. She'd memorized the number, but in her tipsy, exhausted state, the hallway seemed longer than she remembered. She pulled out her keycard, slid it into the slot, and heard the satisfying click of the lock disengaging. The room was dark, completely dark. Madison frowned. She didn't remember turning off all the lights before she left. Maybe housekeeping had been through. She stepped inside, letting the door swing shut behind her, and fumbled along the wall for the light switch. But before she found it, she heard something. A low, sleepy exhale. Her heart jumped into her throat. Someone was in the room. Madison froze, her pulse hammering in her ears. Then she remembered. Tyler. He must have come after all. He must have gotten a keycard from the front desk and decided to surprise her. Relief washed over her, followed quickly by a surge of frustration. So now he decides to show up? She kicked off her heels, her lips curving into a smile despite herself. Fine. If he wanted to surprise her, she could play along. The figure on the bed shifted slightly, the sheets rustling. Madison's eyes adjusted to the darkness just enough to make out a shape. Broad shoulders, the outline of a man lying on his side, facing away from her. Her pulse quickened, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something else. Something reckless. She crossed the room slowly, her bare feet silent on the plush carpet. When she reached the bed, she hesitated for just a moment. Then she leaned down and ran her fingers along the man's shoulder, finding the buttons of his shirt. "Took you long enough," she whispered, her voice low and teasing. The man stirred but didn't wake.
Madison smiled to herself and began unbuttoning his shirt, one button at a time. Her fingers moved carefully, methodically, slipping each button free with a soft pop. 1, 2, 3. The fabric parted beneath her hands, revealing warm skin and the firm lines of muscle beneath. She leaned closer, her breath catching as she undid the fourth button. Her fingertips grazed his chest, and she felt his heartbeat steady and strong. This was bold, bolder than she usually was, but the wine and the anger and the exhaustion had loosened something inside her. For once, she wasn't going to be the good girl who waited patiently for scraps of attention. She was going to take what she wanted. Her fingers found the fifth button, and then the man moved. His hand shot up, catching her wrist in a grip that was firm but not painful. Madison gasped, her heart slamming against her ribs. "Who the hell are you?" The voice was deep, rough with sleep, and completely, utterly unfamiliar.
Madison's blood turned to ice. That wasn't Tyler's voice. The man sat up abruptly, and in the dim light spilling in from the curtains, she saw his face. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, eyes that gleamed like polished steel even in the darkness. Carter Hastings. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. Madison stumbled backward, her hand flying to her mouth. She stammered, her voice breaking. "I thought—" Carter's gaze swept over her, taking in her flushed face, her disheveled hair, the way her dress had shifted during her clumsy retreat. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, something dark and sharp and dangerous. "You thought what?" he asked, his voice low and controlled. Madison's mind was a whirlwind of panic and humiliation. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor and never be seen again. "I thought this was my room," she blurted out. "I'm so sorry." "I didn't." She turned and bolted for the door, her hands shaking as she fumbled for the handle. But before she could escape, Carter's voice stopped her. "Madison." She froze. He knew her name. Slowly, she turned back to face him. Carter was standing now, his shirt still hanging open, his expression impossible to read. "This is going to be an interesting Monday," he said quietly. Madison didn't sleep. How could she? Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Carter Hastings' face, the way his eyes had locked onto hers in the darkness, the way his voice had wrapped around her name like a promise or a threat. She'd spent the rest of the night pacing her actual room, which turned out to be 2057, not 2047, replaying the disaster on an endless loop. By the time morning light crept through the curtains, she'd convinced herself her career was over. She'd assaulted her CEO. Well, not assaulted exactly, but she'd definitely crossed about 17 lines of professional conduct. He could fire her, sue her, tell everyone in the company what she'd done. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand.
A text from Jennifer. "Coffee in the lobby? You looked rough last night." Madison almost laughed. Rough didn't begin to cover it. But she needed to talk to someone before she completely spiraled, so she typed back a quick yes and dragged herself into the shower. 20 minutes later, she sat across from Jennifer in the hotel's cafe, nursing a cup of coffee that tasted like regret. "Okay, spill," Jennifer said, leaning forward with eager eyes. "You disappeared last night without saying goodbye. Did something happen with Tyler?" Madison's hands tightened around her mug. "Tyler never showed up." Meng sentenced Jennifer's face fell. "Maddie, I'm sorry. That guy is such a—" I unbuttoned Carter Hastings' shirt. Madison blurted out. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Jennifer's mouth fell open. Then she started laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but a full, gasping, tears streaming down her face laugh that made other guests turn and stare.
"It's not funny," Madison hissed, her cheeks burning. "Oh my God, it's hilarious," Jennifer wheezed, wiping her eyes. "How? Why? What?" Madison told her everything. The wrong room, the darkness, the moment of horrifying realization. By the time she finished, Jennifer had stopped laughing, but her eyes were still dancing with amusement. "So let me get this straight," Jennifer said slowly. "You thought you were seducing your mediocre boyfriend, but instead, you accidentally felt up the hottest billionaire in California." "It wasn't funny," Madison repeated, but even she could hear how absurd it sounded. Jennifer leaned back in her chair, shaking her head in wonder. "What did he say?" "After you realized." Madison swallowed hard. "He said it was going to be an interesting Monday." The word sent a fresh wave of dread through her stomach. Monday. Tomorrow. She'd have to face him, work in the same building, breathe the same air. Maybe she could quit, move to another state, change her name. "You're spiraling," Jennifer said, reading her expression. "Stop. Maybe it won't be as bad as you think." Madison gave her a flat look. "I unbuttoned his shirt, Jen, in his hotel room, in the dark. He probably thinks I'm some kind of stalker." Jennifer considered this. "Or," she said slowly, a mischievous smile spreading across her face, "he thinks you're bold, confident, sexy." Madison choked on her coffee. "Are you insane?" There was nothing sexy about it. I was mortified. "But he wasn't," Jennifer pointed out. "You said he was calm." "Controlled. If he was really angry or uncomfortable, he would have said something right then. Instead, he just said it would be interesting." Madison wanted to argue, but she couldn't. Carter had been unsettlingly composed. No yelling, no outrage. Just that steady, unreadable gaze and those 5 quiet words. What did that mean? She spent the rest of Sunday in her room, avoiding the conference events, and obsessively checking her work email for a termination notice. But nothing came. No email from HR. No formal reprimand. Just silence. By Monday morning, Madison felt like she was walking to her own execution. The Hastings Technologies building was a sleek tower of glass and steel in downtown LA, and Madison had always loved working there. But today, it felt like a prison. She kept her head down as she rode the elevator to the 7th floor, where the software development department lived. Her cubicle was tucked in the back corner, which had always felt like a blessing. Today, it felt like a hiding spot. She just sat down and opened her laptop when her phone buzzed. An email from Carter Hastings. Her heart stopped. With trembling fingers, she opened it. "Ms. Cole, please come to my office at 10 a.m. CH. That was it. No explanation, no context, just a summons. Madison stared at the screen, her pulse roaring in her ears. This was it. He was going to fire her in person. Maybe he wanted to watch her squirm first. At 9:55, she stood outside the executive suite on the top floor, her palms sweating and her stomach in knots. Carter's assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Helen, glanced up from her desk. "Miss Cole?" Madison nodded, not trusting her voice. "Go ahead." "He's expecting you." The door to Carter's office was heavy and imposing, made of dark wood that probably cost more than Madison's car. She knocked once, softly. "Come in." Madison pushed the door open and stepped inside. The office was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, and the furniture was all clean lines and expensive leather. Behind an enormous desk sat Carter Hastings, looking every bit the billionaire CEO in a charcoal suit that fit him like a second skin. He didn't look up immediately. He was reading something on his computer screen, his expression focused. Madison stood awkwardly near the door, unsure whether to sit or speak or run. Finally, Carter glanced up. Their eyes met, and Madison felt the air leave her lungs. "Close the door," he said quietly. She did, her hands shaking. "Sit." She sat. Carter leaned back in his chair, studying her with that same unreadable expression from Saturday night. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. "I owe you an apology," Madison finally blurted out. "What happened was completely inappropriate." You thought it was your room," Carter interrupted, his voice calm. "Yes, I know." Madison blinked. "You're not angry?" Carter tilted his head slightly, as if considering the question. "Should I be?" "I unbuttoned your shirt," Madison said, her voice rising slightly in disbelief. "Without permission. In the dark. That's bold," Carter finished. Madison froze. That was the exact word Jennifer had used. "I'm not going to fire you, Ms. Cole," Carter continued, his tone still maddeningly even. "What happened was a mistake. An amusing one, but a mistake nonetheless. Amusing." He thought it was amusing. Madison didn't know whether to be relieved or insulted. "However," Carter said, and Madison's stomach dropped. "Here it comes. The real punishment. There is something I need from you." Madison's throat went dry. "What?" Carter stood, walking around his desk with slow, deliberate steps. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "I have a problem," he said quietly, "and I think you might be the solution." Madison's heart was hammering so hard she was sure he could hear it. "What kind of problem?" Carter's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. "The kind that requires a girlfriend." Madison stared at him. "Excuse me?" Madison was certain she'd misheard, or maybe she was still asleep, trapped in some bizarre stress dream brought on by too much champagne and humiliation. But Carter Hastings was still standing in front of her, tall and imposing, his steel-gray eyes fixed on hers with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "I need you to pretend to be my girlfriend," he repeated, as if it were the most reasonable request in the world. Madison's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "I'm sorry, what?" Carter returned to his desk, settling into his chair with the easy confidence of a man who was used to getting exactly what he wanted. My board of directors has become increasingly concerned about my personal life, or rather, my lack of one. They seem to believe that a CEO in his early 30s should be settled, married, ideally, or at least seriously involved with someone. Madison's brain was struggling to keep up, and that's a problem because they're using it as ammunition, Carter said, his jaw tightening slightly. There's a faction on the board that wants to push me out. They think I'm too focused on work, too detached, too cold. They've been making noise about bringing in outside leadership, someone more personable, more relatable. He said the words with barely concealed contempt. Madison swallowed hard. I still don't understand what this has to do with me. Carter leaned forward, resting his elbows on the desk. In 3 weeks, there's a company retreat in Napa Valley. The entire executive team, the board members, and their spouses will be there. It's part business, part social networking. The perfect opportunity for me to prove I'm not the emotionless robot they think I am. Madison's heart was racing now. By showing up with a fake girlfriend. Exactly. And you want that fake girlfriend to be me? Carter's lips quirked. You did already unbutton my shirt. We're halfway there. Madison's face flamed. That was an accident. I know, Carter said, his tone softening slightly. But it gave me an idea. You're smart, articulate, and you work for the company, which makes the relationship believable. Plus, you're not part of the executive circle, so there's less risk of complicated fallout when we eventually end things. When we eventually end things. He was already planning the breakup of their fake relationship. Madison rubbed her temples, trying to process what was happening. This is insane. Is it? Carter asked. You'd be helping me secure my position as CEO. In return, I'll make sure your career here flourishes. Promotions, raises, access to projects you'd never normally touch. Think of it as a mutually beneficial arrangement. Madison wanted to laugh, or scream, or possibly both. I have a boyfriend, she said, though the words felt hollow even as she spoke them. Carter raised an eyebrow. Do you? The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Madison thought about Tyler, about the canceled plans and the half-hearted apologies, about the way he made her feel like she was always asking for too much. It's complicated, she said finally. Carter nodded slowly. Then uncomplicate it, or don't. I'm not asking you to actually date me, Miss Cole. I'm asking you to play a role, 3 weeks of your life, a few public appearances, some hand-holding and smiling for the cameras. That's all. Madison's mind was spinning. This was crazy. Absolutely, completely insane. And yet, a small, reckless part of her was intrigued. When was the last time she'd done something bold? Something that wasn't safe and predictable and small? I need time to think about it, she said. Carter stood, buttoning his suit jacket with practiced ease. You have until tomorrow morning. Meet me here at 9 if your answer is yes. If I don't see you, I'll assume it's a no, and we'll never speak of this again. Madison rose on unsteady legs, her mind still reeling. She was halfway to the door when Carter's voice stopped her. Miss Cole. She turned back. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I think you'd be quite convincing. Madison didn't know how to respond to that, so she simply nodded and left. The elevator ride down felt surreal. By the time she reached her cubicle, Jennifer was already waiting, perched on the edge of Madison's desk with barely contained excitement. Well? Jennifer demanded. Did he fire you? Madison sank into her chair. No. He offered me a job. Jennifer frowned. What kind of job? Madison hesitated, then lowered her voice. He wants me to pretend to be his girlfriend. Jennifer's eyes went wide. Then she grabbed Madison's arm and dragged her into an empty conference room, shutting the door behind them. Explain. Now. So Madison did. She told Jennifer everything, from Carter's board troubles to the Napa Valley retreat to the promise of career advancement. When she finished, Jennifer was staring at her with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "This is like something out of a movie," Jennifer breathed. "I know," Madison said miserably. "What do I do?" Jennifer didn't hesitate. "You say yes." Madison gaped at her. "Are you serious?" "Hell yes, I'm serious," Jennifer said, her eyes gleaming. "Maddie, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Do you know how many women would kill to be in your position right now?" Madison shook her head. "It's not real, Jen. It's pretend. And what about Tyler?" Jennifer's expression hardened. "What about Tyler? The guy who ditches you at every opportunity and makes you feel like you're not worth his time? Forget Tyler. This is about you. About what you want." Madison bit her lip. "I don't even know what I want anymore." Jennifer softened, reaching out to squeeze Madison's hand.
"Then maybe it's time to figure it out. And if that means spending 3 weeks pretending to date a gorgeous billionaire, well, I think you'll survive." Despite everything, Madison smiled. "You're a terrible influence." "I'm the best influence," Jennifer corrected. "Now go home, think about it, and for the love of God, say yes tomorrow." That night, Madison lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her phone sat on the nightstand, Tyler's last text still unanswered. "Sorry, babe." 2 words that somehow managed to say nothing at all. She thought about Carter's offer, the absurdity of it, the risk, but also the possibilities. What if Jennifer was right? What if this was exactly the kind of shake-up her life needed? Before she could second-guess herself, Madison grabbed her phone and opened a new message to Tyler. "We need to talk. I don't think this is working anymore." She hit send before she could change her mind. Emissions. Then she set the phone down, her heart pounding, and closed her eyes.
Tomorrow morning, she would walk into Carter Hastings's office, and she would say, yes. Madison arrived at Carter's office at 8:50 the next morning, her palms damp and her stomach churning. She'd barely slept, her mind consumed by what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. But she'd made her decision. Helen, Carter's assistant, gave her a knowing smile as she waved Madison through. "He's expecting you." Madison knocked once and entered. Carter was standing by the windows, his back to the door, hands clasped behind him. He turned when he heard her, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. "So," Carter said finally, his voice giving nothing away. "What's your answer?" Madison lifted her chin, meeting his gaze straight on. "Yes," she said. "I'll do it." Something flickered in Carter's eyes. Satisfaction, maybe. Or relief. "Good," he said simply. Then he crossed the room and extended his hand. "Let's make this convincing." Madison took his hand, and the moment their skin touched, a jolt of electricity shot up her arm. Carter's grip was warm and firm, his thumb brushing across her knuckles in a way that felt far too intimate for a business arrangement. "Welcome to the performance of a lifetime, Miss Cole," he murmured. Madison swallowed hard, her pulse racing. What have I just agreed to? The first rule of their arrangement, Carter explained, was believability. If they were going to convince his board of directors that their relationship was real, they needed to act like a real couple. That meant spending time together, learning each other's habits, knowing the little details that separated genuine intimacy from a poorly rehearsed performance. "People notice inconsistencies," Carter said as they sat in his office that Tuesday morning, a leather-bound notebook open between them. "If I say your favorite color is blue and you say it's green, the whole facade crumbles." Madison nodded, trying to ignore how surreal this felt. Yesterday, she'd been a mid-level software engineer whose biggest concern was debugging code. Today, she was sitting across from a billionaire CEO, planning an elaborate deception. "So what is your favorite color?" she asked. "Gray," Carter said without hesitation. Madison raised an eyebrow. "How very on brand for you." A flicker of amusement crossed his face. "And yours?" "Yellow," Madison said. "Like sunflowers." Carter made a note. "Favorite food?" "Thai. Specifically, pad cu. "Italian," Carter replied. "There's a place in Santa Monica I go to when I want privacy. Giovanni's. We should go there this week. Be seen together." Madison's heart skipped. "You mean like a date?" "Exactly like a date," Carter said. "We need to establish a timeline. How we met, how long we've been seeing each other, why we kept it quiet." Madison chewed her lip. "How did we meet?" Carter leaned back in his chair, studying her. "The gala."
Saturday night. You were standing alone by the champagne fountain, looking like you wanted to disappear. I approached you. We talked. There was a spark. The way he said it, calm and certain, made it sound almost real. Madison felt her cheeks warm. "And we've been secretly dating since then?" "For 3 months," Carter corrected. "We kept it quiet because of the professional complications. But now we've decided to go public. 3 months. That would place the start of their fictional relationship in early summer." Madison tried to imagine it. Meeting Carter at some company event, his hand on her back as he guided her through a crowd. Whispered conversations in empty hallways. It was disturbingly easy to picture. Over the next hour, they built their cover story, where they'd had their first kiss, outside the office building under the glow of the streetlights. What Carter had said that made Madison laugh. A dry observation about the absurdity of corporate jargon. How Madison had surprised him by beating him at chess during a quiet evening at his penthouse. "You played chess?" Carter asked, a note of genuine curiosity in his voice. Madison nodded. "My dad taught me. I'm not a master, but I'm decent." Carter's expression shifted, something almost like respect flickering in his eyes. "We'll have to play sometime. For real." The comment caught Madison off guard. For real. As if there would be moments between them that weren't part of the performance. Before she could respond, Carter's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his jaw tightening. "The board chair," he said, "wants to have lunch today. This is exactly the kind of thing we need to manage carefully." Madison's stomach flipped. "Do you want me to come?" Carter's gaze sharpened. "Not yet. Too soon. But this weekend we're attending a charity auction together. Black tie. I'll have a dress sent to your apartment." Madison blinked. "You don't even know my size."
"I'll find out," Carter said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And maybe, in his world, it was. By the time Madison left Carter's office, her head was spinning. She returned to her cubicle in a daze, barely registering the hum of the office around her. Jennifer appeared within minutes, eyes alight with curiosity. "Well? How did it go?" Madison glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned in close. "He wants me to go to a charity auction with him." "This weekend." Jennifer's face split into a grin. "Oh my God, this is happening. This is actually happening." "I don't know if I can do this," Madison whispered. "I'm not good at lying." "What if someone sees through it?" Jennifer gripped her shoulders. "Maddie, listen to me. You're smart. You're capable. And most importantly, you're not actually lying about the important stuff. You're just playing a role. Actors do it all the time." Madison wanted to believe her, but as the week progressed, The reality of what she'd agreed to began to sink in. Carter texted her every day. Small things, mostly. Updates on the charity auction. Reminders to memorize their cover story. But there were other messages, too. Personal ones. How was your day? Did you eat lunch? You should try the coffee from the third-floor break room. It's better than the sludge on 7. Madison found herself smiling at her phone more than she cared to admit. And when Tyler finally called, 3 days after her breakup text, she felt nothing. No heartbreak, no regret, just relief. I don't understand, Tyler said, his voice tinged with confusion. Things were fine. What changed? Madison thought about how to answer. Things hadn't been fine. They'd been stagnant, comfortable in the worst way. But she didn't say that. I just need something different, she said. I'm sorry. Tyler hung up without another word. Madison stared at her phone for a long moment, then set it aside. That chapter was over. On Friday afternoon, a package arrived at her apartment. Inside was a gown that made Madison's breath catch. Deep emerald silk that shimmered in the light, with a neckline that was elegant but daring. She held it up, marveling at the craftsmanship. The dress probably cost more than her rent. There was a note tucked inside. Wear your hair down. C.H. Madison's pulse quickened. Carter had been thinking about how she would look, how she would wear her hair. The intimacy of it, even in the context of their arrangement, made her stomach flutter. Saturday evening came too quickly. A car arrived at her building at 6, sleek and black, and completely out of place in her modest neighborhood. The driver, a stoic man in his 50s, opened the door without a word. Madison slid into the back seat, her hands trembling slightly as she smoothed the emerald silk over her knees. 20 minutes later, the car pulled up in front of the venue.
A historic mansion in Beverly Hills, its facade glowing under carefully placed lights. Madison's heart hammered as the driver opened her door, and there, waiting at the base of the steps, was Carter. He wore a tuxedo that fit him like a dream, his dark hair perfectly styled, his expression unreadable, as always. But when his eyes landed on Madison, something shifted. His gaze traveled slowly from her face to the gown and back again, and for the first time since she'd met him, Carter Hastings looked genuinely stunned. You look. He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. Incredible. Simmons felt her cheeks heat. You clean up pretty well yourself. Carter offered his arm, and she took it, her fingers resting lightly on his sleeve. The fabric was soft and expensive, and beneath it she could feel the strength of his muscles. Ready? He murmured. Madison took a breath. Ready. Together they climbed the steps and entered the glittering world of Los Angeles high society.
The mansion's interior was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over marble floors, and every surface seemed to gleam with wealth and history. Guests in tuxedos and gowns milled about, champagne flutes in hand, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. Madison felt a flutter of nerves as heads turned toward them. She could see the curiosity in their eyes, the whispered questions. Who was the woman on Carter Hastings's arm? Carter seemed to sense her unease. His hand moved to the small of her back, a steadying presence. Breathe, he murmured, his voice low enough that only she could hear. You're doing perfectly. Madison glanced up at him, surprised by the gentleness in his tone. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the noise of the party faded away. There was something in his gaze, something warm and real and utterly disarming. Mr. Hastings! A booming voice shattered the moment. A portly man in his 60s approached, a broad smile on his face. I didn't expect to see you here tonight. And with a lovely companion, no less. Carter's expression smoothed into polite professionalism. George, good to see you. This is Madison Cole. Madison, this is George Brennan. He sits on our board. Madison extended her hand, smiling warmly. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Brennan. George's eyes twinkled as he shook her hand. The pleasure is mine, my dear. I must say, Carter, you've been keeping secrets. How long have you two been together? Carter's hand tightened slightly on Madison's back. A few months. We've been keeping things private. George chuckled. Well, the secret's out now. You make a striking couple. As George moved on, Madison exhaled slowly. That wasn't so bad, she whispered. Carter's lips quirked. That was the easy part. Wait until you meet Margaret Chen. Madison groaned softly. Margaret Chen was the vice chair of the board, and, according to office gossip, the ringleader of the faction trying to oust Carter. Wonderful, Madison muttered. Carter leaned down, his breath warm against her ear. Just stay close to me. I'll handle her. The intimacy of the gesture sent a shiver down Madison's spine. She nodded, not trusting her voice. They spent the next hour circulating through the crowd. Carter introduced her to donors, board members, and business partners, and Madison played her role flawlessly. She laughed at the right moments, asked thoughtful questions, and let Carter's hand linger on her waist in a way that screamed coupledom. Margaret Chen found them near the silent auction tables, her sharp eyes assessing Madison with the precision of a jeweler examining a questionable diamond. She was a striking woman in her 50s, her silver hair cut in a severe bob, her black gown elegant and intimidating. Carter, Margaret said, her voice cool and measured. I heard rumors you'd brought a date. I had to see for myself. Carter's expression remained neutral, but Madison felt the tension in his body. Margaret, you look lovely tonight. This is Madison Cole. Margaret's gaze swept over Madison, lingering just long enough to make her uncomfortable. Cole. Are you related to the Boston Coles? No, Madison said with a polite smile. I'm from a much less impressive family tree. My dad's a high school teacher, and my mom runs a small bakery in Oregon. She saw a flicker of something in Margaret's eyes. Dismissal, maybe, or calculation. How charming, Margaret said, though her tone suggested it was anything but. And how did you two meet? Madison opened her mouth, but Carter spoke first. At a company event. Madison works in software development. She's brilliant with code. We started talking about AI integration, and I was immediately impressed. The lie rolled off his tongue so smoothly that even Madison almost believed it. Margaret's eyebrow arched. How professional, and this is a serious relationship? Carter's arm slipped around Madison's waist, pulling her closer. The gesture was possessive and unmistakably intimate. Very serious, he said quietly. Margaret's lips pressed into a thin line. Well, I suppose stranger things have happened. Enjoy your evening. As she walked away, Madison let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. She hates me, Madison whispered. She doesn't hate you, Carter said. She hates that she can't use my personal life against me anymore. Madison looked up at him, studying his profile. His jaw was tight, his eyes following Margaret's retreat. Is she really that dangerous? Carter's gaze finally dropped to meet hers. Margaret Chen doesn't make moves unless she's sure she'll win. The fact that she's already probing means she's looking for weaknesses. We can't give her any. The weight of his words settled over Madison. This wasn't just a game. Carter's entire career, his company, was at stake.
And she was his shield. The auction began shortly after, and they found seats near the back. The auctioneer's voice boomed through the room as paintings and jewelry and exotic vacation packages were presented, one by one. Madison tried to focus, but she was hyper-aware of Carter beside her. The warmth of his thigh pressed against hers, the subtle scent of his cologne, something woodsy and expensive. The way his fingers drummed absently on his knee, betraying a restlessness his face never showed. "Are you planning to bid on anything?" Madison asked softly. Carter glanced at her. "That depends. Do you see anything you like?" Madison scanned the room, then pointed to a small watercolor painting near the stage. It depicted a field of sunflowers under a brilliant sky, all yellows and golds and summer warmth. "That one's beautiful." Carter studied the painting for a moment, then raised his paddle. 5,000, the auctioneer called.
"Do I hear 6? Someone across the room raised their paddle. Carter raised his again. 8,000. Madison's eyes widened. "Carter, you don't have to—" 12,000, a new voice called. Carter didn't hesitate. 20,000. The room fell silent. The auctioneer's gavel came down. "Sold to the gentleman in the back for $20,000. Madison stared at him, stunned. "You just spent $20,000 on a painting." "I spent $20,000 on something you liked," Carter corrected. His gaze was steady, almost challenging. "Consider it an investment in our cover story. A boyfriend would buy his girlfriend something she admired. Madison's heart was doing strange things in her chest. That's a very expensive cover story." "Then we'd better make it convincing," Carter murmured. After the auction, they stepped outside onto the mansion's terrace. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of jasmine and chlorine from the nearby pool. String lights hung overhead, casting a soft glow over the stone patio. Madison leaned against the railing, gazing out at the manicured gardens below. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for the painting." That was unexpected. Carter stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "You're doing well tonight." "Better than I anticipated." Madison glanced at him. "Did you think I'd embarrass you?" "No," Carter said, and there was a surprising honesty in his voice. "I thought you'd be nervous, but you're a natural." Madison laughed softly. "I'm terrified. I just hide it well." Carter turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. "You don't have to hide it with me." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Madison's pulse quickened. This was supposed to be an act, a performance. But the way Carter was looking at her right now felt anything but fake. "Carter," she didn't finish. A flash of light erupted from the garden below, followed by another. "Cameras." Madison's stomach dropped. "Paparazzi," Carter said, his voice tight. He moved quickly, stepping in front of Madison to block her from view. "How did they get past security?" Madison's heart raced as more flashes lit up the darkness. She could hear voices, photographers calling Carter's name, demanding he turn around. "Mr. Hastings, who's your date?" "Carter, is this your girlfriend?" "Miss, can you tell us your name?" Carter's jaw clenched. He grabbed Madison's hand, his grip firm and reassuring. "Ignore them. We're leaving." But before they could move, one photographer got bold, pushing through the hedges and onto the terrace. His camera was already raised. "Just one picture, Mr. Hastings." Carter stepped between Madison and the camera, his body a wall of protection. "Get out," he said, his voice cold and dangerous. "This is private property." The photographer didn't back down. "The public has a right to know who you're dating. Is it serious? Are you engaged?" Something in Carter snapped. His hand shot out, grabbing the camera before the photographer could react. "I said, get out." Security appeared moments later, escorting the photographer away. But the damage was done. Madison's hands were shaking, her breath coming in short gasps. "Are you all right?" Carter asked, his voice softer now. Madison nodded, though she didn't feel all right. "I didn't expect that." "I should have," Carter said grimly. "I underestimated how quickly word would spread." He ran a hand through his hair, a rare crack in his composure. "I'm sorry. I'll make sure security tightens protocols for the Napa retreat." Madison looked up at him, seeing something she hadn't expected. Guilt. "It's not your fault," she said. Carter's eyes met hers, and for a moment, the mask he wore slipped. "Yes," he said quietly. "It is." They left the mansion shortly after, the ride home silent. Madison stared out the window, her mind replaying the night, the auction, the terrace, the cameras. But more than that, she thought about the moments in between. The way Carter had protected her, the way he'd looked at her when he bought the painting, the way he'd said, "You don't have to hide it with me." By the time the car stopped in front of her building, Madison's emotions were a tangled mess. Carter walked her to the door, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable once more. "Get some rest," he said. "I'll call you tomorrow." Madison nodded, then hesitated. "Carter?" He turned back. "Tonight. Thank you. For everything." Carter studied her for a long moment, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. "You did well, Madison. Better than well." Then he leaned in, so close she could feel the warmth of him, and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. "Good night," he murmured, and then he was gone, disappearing into the back of the car, leaving Madison standing in the doorway, with her heart racing and her mind spinning. Inside her apartment, she collapsed onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. This was supposed to be simple, a business arrangement, 3 weeks of pretending. But nothing about tonight had felt like pretending, and that terrified her. The next morning, Madison woke to her phone buzzing incessantly. She grabbed it, squinting at the screen. 53 text messages, 27 missed calls. And when she opened her social media, her stomach dropped. Photos, dozens of them, her and Carter at the auction, his hand on her back, the two of them on the terrace, his body shielding hers from the cameras, and the headlines. "Mystery woman captures heart of tech billionaire." Carter Hastings spotted with stunning date at Beverly Hills Gala. Who is she, inside the secret romance of LA's most eligible bachelor? Madison's hands trembled as she scrolled through the articles. Her name hadn't been released yet, but it was only a matter of time. Jennifer called within seconds. "Have you seen the news?" Madison groaned. "I'm looking at it now." "Maddie, you're famous. This is insane." "This is a nightmare," Madison corrected. Jennifer laughed. "Are you kidding? You look amazing in those photos. And the way Carter's looking at you." "It's fake," Madison interrupted. "We were acting." "If that's acting," Jennifer said slowly, "then he deserves an Oscar." By Monday, the office was buzzing. Madison could feel the stares as she walked through the lobby, whispers following her like shadows. She kept her head down, moving quickly toward the elevators, but she didn't make it far. Madison Cole? A woman in a sharp blazer stepped into her path, a press badge hanging around her neck. "I'm Vanessa Moreno with Tech Insider. Can I ask you a few questions about your relationship with Carter Hastings?" Madison's heart leapt into her throat. "I don't have any comment." "Is it true you've been dating for months?" Vanessa pressed, her eyes sharp. "How did you meet? Are you living together?" "Excuse me," Madison said firmly, sidestepping the reporter. She practically ran to the elevator, her pulse pounding in her ears. When the doors closed, she sagged against the wall, exhaling shakily. This was spiraling out of control. Her phone buzzed, a text from Carter. "Come to my office." Now. Madison's stomach twisted, but she obeyed. When she reached the executive floor, Helen waved her through without a word, her expression sympathetic. Carter was standing by the windows when Madison entered, his posture tense. "Close the door," he said without turning around. Madison did, her hands trembling slightly. "Carter, there was a reporter in the lobby. She—" "I know," Carter interrupted. He turned to face her, and the storm in his eyes made her breath catch. "It's already started. By tonight, your name will be everywhere. Your face, your background, everything." Madison felt the room tilt. "I didn't think it would be like this." "Neither did I," Carter admitted. He crossed the room, stopping in front of her. "I underestimated how aggressive the media would be. I'm sorry. If you want to back out, I'll understand." Madison stared at him. "Back out? Now? You didn't sign up for this level of scrutiny," Carter said. "If it's too much, we can end it. I'll release a statement saying we've decided to keep our relationship private and ask for respect. It won't stop the attention completely, but it will slow it down." Madison considered his offer. It would be so easy to walk away, to return to her quiet, anonymous life. But as she looked at Carter, saw the tension in his jaw and the guilt in his eyes, she realized something. She didn't want to walk away. Not yet. "I'm not backing out," Madison said. Carter's expression shifted. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Madison said, though her heart was hammering. "But we need ground rules, boundaries. If we're going to survive this, we need to be on the same page." Carter nodded slowly. "Agreed. What do you need?" Madison took a breath, organizing her thoughts. "First, no lies to each other. If something's bothering you, tell me. If this arrangement stops working for you, tell me. I don't want to be blindsided." "Done," Carter said. "Second, my family is off limits. If reporters dig into my background, fine. But I don't want my parents dragged into this." Carter's gaze softened. "I'll make sure my PR team handles it. Your family won't be contacted." "And third," Madison said, her voice faltering slightly, "we need to be clear about what this is. We're pretending, Carter. This isn't real. I need you to remember that." Something flickered in Carter's eyes, but he nodded. "Of course."
Madison wasn't sure why his agreement made her chest ache, but she pushed the feeling aside. "Okay, then I'm in. For the full 3 weeks." Carter extended his hand. "Partners?" Madison took it, his grip warm and steady. "Partners." Over the next week, Madison's life transformed. Her social media exploded with followers. Strangers stopped her on the street asking for photos or details about Carter. A tabloid somehow got hold of her college yearbook photo, which was mortifying. But through it all, Carter was a constant presence. He called her every evening, checking in, making sure she was okay. He sent her articles about managing media attention. He even had his lawyer draft a cease and desist letter when one particularly aggressive blogger started making up stories about her past. And slowly, Madison began to realize something unsettling. She was starting to look forward to his calls, to the sound of his voice, to the way he seemed genuinely concerned about her well-being.
On Thursday, Carter invited her to dinner at Giovanni's, the Italian restaurant he'd mentioned during their first meeting. It was tucked away on a quiet street in Santa Monica, the kind of place that didn't advertise, because it didn't need to. Inside, the lighting was low and intimate, candles flickering on each table. A hostess led them to a private corner booth, away from prying eyes. "This is beautiful," Madison said as she slid into the seat. "It's one of the few places I can eat without being photographed," Carter said, settling across from her. The owner values discretion. A waiter appeared, and Carter ordered for both of them without hesitation. Normally, Madison would have bristled at someone ordering for her, but somehow, with Carter, it felt natural, like he knew her, which she supposed he was starting to. "How are you holding up?" Carter asked once they were alone. Madison shrugged. "I've had better weeks. My mom called yesterday. She saw the photos online and has about 1,000,000 questions." Carter's lips twitched. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. Sort of. I said we've been dating quietly and things got more public than we expected." Madison paused. "She wants to meet you." Carter stilled. "Meet me?" "I told her it wasn't necessary," Madison said quickly. "But she's insistent. Apparently, any man dating her daughter needs to pass the parental approval test." Carter was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "When?" Madison blinked. "When what?" "When does she want to meet me?" Carter said. "If it's important to you, I'll do it." Madison's heart did a strange flip. "Carter, you don't have to." "I want to," he interrupted. "If we're going to sell this, we need to sell it to everyone, including your family." He was right, of course. But the idea of Carter meeting her parents, sitting in her childhood home, pretending to be her boyfriend, in front of the two people who knew her best, felt dangerous.
"Okay," Madison said finally. "I'll set something up." The food arrived, and they ate in comfortable silence for a while. But Madison couldn't stop stealing glances at Carter. The way the candlelight softened his features. The way he seemed more relaxed here than she'd ever seen him. "Can I ask you something?" Madison said. Carter looked up. "Of course. Why did you really choose me for this arrangement?" Carter set down his fork, considering the question. "I told you. You're smart, articulate." "That's the official answer," Madison interrupted. "But there has to be more to it. You could have asked anyone. Someone from your social circle. Someone used to the spotlight." Carter was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than usual. "Because when I woke up and found you in my room that night, you were terrified, mortified. But you didn't try to make excuses or shift blame. You just apologized and left. It was honest, real." He paused.
"Most people in my life want something from me. Money, connections, status. But you didn't. You just wanted to escape. I found that refreshing." Madison's chest tightened. "So, I'm your fake girlfriend because I accidentally assaulted you in a hotel room?" Carter's lips curved into a rare, genuine smile. "Something like that." Madison laughed, the sound surprising both of them. "That's the strangest compliment I've ever received." "I'm full of strange compliments," Carter said. The rest of dinner passed in easy conversation. They talked about books they'd read, places they wanted to travel, childhood memories. And with every story Madison shared, she saw Carter soften a little more. Saw glimpses of the man beneath the CEO mask. By the time they left the restaurant, the night air cool and salt-tinged from the nearby ocean, Madison felt lighter than she had in days. Carter walked her to his car, but before she could get in, he caught her hand. "Madison."
She turned, and the intensity in his gaze stole her breath. "Thank you," Carter said quietly, "for doing this, for not running when things got complicated." Madison's heart thudded. "You're welcome." Carter stepped closer, and for a moment she thought he might kiss her, really kiss her, not just for show. But instead he lifted her hand to his lips and pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles. "Good night," he murmured. Madison climbed into the car, her hand still tingling from his touch, her mind a whirlwind of confusion. This was pretend. She needed to remember that. But God, it was getting harder every day. When she got home, Jennifer was waiting on her doorstep, a bottle of wine in hand. "Emergency best friend meeting," Jennifer announced. "You've been dodging my calls." Madison let her in, and they settled on the couch. Jennifer poured 2 generous glasses of wine and fixed Madison with a knowing look. "Okay, spill."
"What's going on with you and Carter?" "Nothing," Madison said, but the word felt hollow. "We're just following the plan." Jennifer snorted. "Maddie, I saw the photos from the auction. The way he was looking at you. That wasn't acting." Madison took a long sip of wine. "It has to be. This whole thing is fake, Jen. In 2 weeks it'll be over, and I'll go back to being nobody." "Do you want it to be over?" Jennifer asked gently. Madison opened her mouth to say yes, but the word wouldn't come. Because the truth was, she didn't know anymore. The lines were blurring. The pretending was starting to feel real, and she was terrified of what would happen when it all ended. "I don't know," Madison whispered. Jennifer reached over and squeezed her hand. "Then maybe it's time to figure it out." The following Saturday, Madison found herself in a car with Carter, driving north toward Napa Valley. The company retreat had arrived, and with it, the true test of their arrangement. The retreat was being held at an exclusive resort nestled in the hills, surrounded by vineyards and rolling green landscapes. It was breathtaking and intimidating. "Ready?" Carter asked as they pulled up to the entrance. Madison took a breath. "Ready." They stepped out of the car, and immediately heads turned. Executives and board members were gathered on the veranda, cocktails in hand, and Madison felt the weight of their stares. Carter's hand found the small of her back, a now familiar gesture of reassurance. "You've got this," he murmured. And together, they walked into the lion's den. The resort was stunning. Sprawling lawns, infinity pools overlooking vineyards, rooms that looked like they'd been pulled from a luxury magazine. Madison and Carter were given a suite, which made sense for appearances, but did nothing to calm Madison's nerves. The suite had 2 bedrooms, thankfully, but the shared living space felt intimate in a way that made her hyper-aware of Carter's presence. "I'll take the smaller room," Carter said, setting down his bag. Madison shook her head. "You're paying for this. Take whichever room you want." Carter gave her a look. "Madison, I'm not going to argue about bedroom sizes. Take the bigger room." She wanted to protest, but the firmness in his tone told her it was pointless. So she nodded and retreated to unpack, trying to ignore the strange domesticity of sharing a space with him. The first official event was a welcome dinner that evening. Madison changed into a navy dress, simple but elegant, and when she emerged from her room, she found Carter waiting. He'd changed into slacks and a crisp white shirt, the sleeves rolled up to his forearms. It should have been casual. Instead, he looked unfairly attractive. "Ready?" he asked. Madison nodded, and they headed down to the dining pavilion. The space was open air, strings of lights crisscrossing overhead, tables arranged in a U-shape. Board members and executives mingled, wine flowing freely. Margaret Chen was holding court near the center, her sharp gaze landing on Madison and Carter the moment they arrived. "Here we go," Carter murmured. They approached, and Margaret's smile was all teeth. "Carter." "Madison. How lovely to see you both. I trust your room is satisfactory." "It's perfect," Madison said warmly. "Thank you for organizing such a beautiful event." Margaret's eyes glittered. "Well, we do try. It's important for the team to bond outside the office. Speaking of which, I've arranged a little icebreaker for tomorrow morning. Trust exercises, team building. You'll both participate, of course." Carter's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course. Dinner was a carefully choreographed affair. Madison found herself seated between Carter and a board member named David Ortiz, who spent the entire meal asking probing questions about her relationship with Carter. "So, Madison," David said, swirling his wine.
"How does a software engineer end up dating the CEO? That's quite the leap." Madison smiled, keeping her tone light. "I'd say it's less of a leap and more of a stumble. We met at a company event, started talking about AI integration, and realized we had more in common than we expected." David raised an eyebrow. AI integration. How romantic. M.S. Carter's hand found Madison's under the table, his fingers lacing through hers. The gesture was invisible to everyone else, but the warmth of his touch sent a jolt through her. "She's brilliant," Carter said, his voice steady. "I'd be a fool not to notice." David chuckled. "Well, you've certainly surprised us all, Carter. I don't think anyone expected you to settle down." "I wouldn't call it settling," Carter said, his gaze sliding to Madison. "I'd call it finding someone worth my time." Madison's breath caught. The way he was looking at her, the sincerity in his voice. It felt real. Too real. After dinner, there was a bonfire near the pool. Guests gathered around, drinks in hand, the fire casting flickering shadows across their faces. Madison stood close to Carter, his arm draped casually over her shoulders. To anyone watching, they looked like a couple completely at ease with each other. But inside, Madison was a mess. Every touch, every glance, every whispered word was chipping away at the walls she'd tried to build. "Are you cold?" Carter asked, noticing her shiver. "A little," Madison admitted. Without a word, Carter shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The fabric was warm from his body, carrying the faint scent of his cologne. Madison pulled it closer, her heart aching. "Thank you," she whispered. Carter's gaze lingered on her. "Any time." Margaret appeared at that moment, her timing impeccable. "How sweet," she said, her tone making it clear she thought it was anything but. "You two are quite the picture. I have to admit, Carter, I didn't think you were capable of this level of affection."
Carter's expression didn't change. "People surprise you, Margaret," Margaret hummed. "Indeed they do. I suppose we'll see how long the surprise lasts." She walked away, leaving a chill in her wake. Madison turned to Carter. "She's testing us." "She's always testing," Carter said. "That's what she does." Madison bit her lip. "What if we mess up? What if she sees through this?" Carter's hand moved to her cheek, tilting her face up to meet his eyes. The gesture was so tender, so unexpected, that Madison's breath caught. "We won't," he said quietly, "because I trust you. And you trust me. That's all we need." Madison wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. That night, back in their suite, Madison couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the day. Carter's hand in hers at dinner, the jacket draped over her shoulders, the way he'd touched her face by the fire. This was supposed to be pretend. But it didn't feel pretend anymore. A soft knock on her door made her sit up. "Madison?" Carter's voice was low. "Are you awake?" She got out of bed, opening the door to find Carter standing in the hallway, still dressed, his expression troubled. "What's wrong?" Madison asked. Carter hesitated. "I couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about Margaret, about what she said." Madison stepped aside, letting him in. He sat on the edge of her bed, running a hand through his hair. "She's going to keep pushing," Carter said, "looking for cracks. And I don't want you to get hurt in the crossfire." Madison sat beside him. "I knew what I was signing up for." "Did you?" Carter turned to her, his eyes searching hers. "Because I'm not sure I did." Madison's heart pounded. "What do you mean?" Carter was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I thought this would be simple. A business arrangement." But it's not simple, Madison. Not anymore. Madison's breath caught. "Carter!" He stood abruptly. "Forget I said anything? I should let you sleep." But before he could leave, Madison grabbed his hand. "Wait." Carter stopped, his back to her. "I feel it too," Madison whispered. "Whatever this is, it's not just pretend anymore. Not for me." Carter turned slowly, his eyes blazing. "Madison, if we cross this line—" "I know," she interrupted. "I know it's complicated. I know it's messy. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel something." Carter closed the distance between them in 2 strides. His hands framed her face, his touch achingly gentle. "If we do this," he said, his voice rough, "there's no going back." Madison's pulse raced. "I don't want to go back." That was all the permission Carter needed. He kissed her, and it was nothing like the chaste kiss he'd pressed to her forehead days ago. This was fire and need, and months of tension finally breaking free. Madison melted into him, her hands gripping his shirt, pulling him closer. Carter's arms wrapped around her, holding her like she was something precious.
When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Carter rested his forehead against hers. "This changes everything," he murmured. "I know," Madison whispered. And for the first time since this whole charade began, she wasn't afraid. The next morning, Madison woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains, and Carter's arm draped across her waist. They'd fallen asleep tangled together, and the intimacy of it made her chest ache in the best way. Carter stirred, his eyes opening slowly. When he saw her, a small smile curved his lips. "Good morning." "Morning," Madison said, her voice soft. They lay there for a moment, neither wanting to break the skull. But reality intruded when Carter's phone buzzed on the nightstand. He groaned, reaching for it. "It's Helen. The trust-building exercises start in an hour." Madison laughed. "Margaret really doesn't waste time, does she?" Carter pulled Madison closer, pressing a kiss to her temple. "Let her try. She has no idea what she's up against." And as they got ready for the day, side by side, Madison realized something. This wasn't pretend anymore. This was real. And whatever happened next, she was ready to face it. With Carter, the trust-building exercises were, predictably, excruciating. Margaret had organized a series of team challenges designed to test communication and cooperation, but Madison suspected the real goal was to watch people squirm. The first exercise involved blindfolding one partner while the other guided them through an obstacle course using only verbal instructions. Madison and Carter were paired together naturally, and Margaret made sure to position herself where she could observe every moment. "Ready?" Carter asked, adjusting the blindfold over Madison's eyes. "As I'll ever be," Madison said, her world going dark. "I've got you." Carter's voice came from beside her, steady and sure. 3 steps forward, slowly. Madison moved, trusting his voice. "Now turn left. 2 more steps. Stop." His instructions were precise, confident, and Madison found herself relaxing into the rhythm of it. When they reached the end of the course, Carter removed the blindfold, and Madison blinked in the sudden brightness. "That was amazing," one of the board members said, clapping. "You two work together like you've been doing this for years." Margaret's smile was tight. "Impressive. Let's see how you do with the roles reversed." Time, Carter wore the blindfold, and Madison guided him. But halfway through, Margaret interrupted. "Let's make this more interesting," she said. "Everyone switch partners." Madison's stomach dropped. "What?" "Switch," Margaret repeated, We want to see how well everyone communicates, not just with their chosen partners. Carter's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Fine. Madison was reassigned to guide David Ortiz, while Carter was paired with a woman named Laura from marketing. Madison tried to focus on the exercise, but her attention kept drifting to Carter. Laura was laughing, her hand on his arm as she guided him through the course. It was innocent, professional, but something hot and uncomfortable twisted in Madison's chest. Jealousy. She was jealous. When the exercises finally ended, Madison found Carter near the refreshment table. "That was fun," she said, her tone flat. Carter raised an eyebrow. "Was it? Margaret's really pulling out all the stops," Madison said, "pairing you with Laura like that." Carter's lips twitched. "Are you jealous?" Madison's cheeks flushed. "No." "You are," Carter said, stepping closer. "Madison Cole, are you jealous?" "Maybe a little," Madison admitted, her voice dropping. "She was very touchy." Carter's hand found hers, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "I didn't notice." "Liar." "Okay, I noticed," Carter said, his eyes warm. "But I wasn't interested. There's only one person I want touching me."
Madison's breath caught. "Carter, we need to talk," he interrupted. "Tonight, after the group dinner. Just us." Madison nodded, her heart racing. That evening, the group gathered for a wine tasting at one of the resort's private vineyard terraces. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, and the atmosphere should have been romantic. But Madison felt the tension coiling tighter with every passing minute. Margaret cornered her near the end of the evening, a glass of wine in hand. "You've done well this weekend," Margaret said. "Better than I expected." Madison forced a smile. "Thank you." "But I have to ask," Margaret continued, her voice dropping. "Is this relationship real? Or is it a convenient fiction to improve Carter's image?" Madison's pulse spiked. "I don't know what you mean." Margaret's eyes were sharp. "I've been in this business a long time, Madison. I can spot a performance. And while you and Carter are convincing, there's something off. Something rehearsed."
Franklin's mind raced. She needed to shut this down. Now. "You're wrong," Madison said, her voice steady. "What Carter and I have is real, and frankly, it's none of your business." Margaret's smile was cold. "Everything about Carter Hastings is my business. He's the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. His decisions affect thousands of people. If he's being manipulated or distracted, that's a problem." "I'm not manipulating him," Madison said, anger flaring. "I care about him, more than I expected to. And if that's inconvenient for you, I'm sorry, but it's the truth." Margaret studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "We'll see." When Margaret walked away, Madison's hands were shaking. She found Carter on the terrace, staring out at the vineyards. "We need to leave," Madison said urgently. Carter turned. "What happened?" "Margaret," Madison said. "She knows, or she suspects. I tried to shut it down, but—" Carter took her hand. "Breathe. It's okay." "It's not okay," Madison said. "If she finds out this is fake, she'll destroy you." Carter pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. "She won't, because it's not fake anymore, remember?" Madison looked up at him, her chest tight. But the board doesn't know that. They still think this is... Then we tell them the truth, Carter said. Madison blinked. What? Not the whole truth, Carter clarified, but enough. We started this as an arrangement, yes, but it became real. That's the story. It's honest, and it's exactly what they need to hear. Madison's heart pounded. Are you sure? Carter's hands framed her face. I've never been more sure of anything. That night, after the group had dispersed, Carter and Madison walked along the vineyard paths, the moon casting silver light over the rows of grapevines. I meant what I said earlier, Carter said quietly. This stopped being pretend a long time ago. Madison's throat tightened. For me too.
They stopped walking, standing face to face in the quiet darkness. So, what happens now? Madison asked. We finish the retreat, Carter said. We face the board. And then we figure out what this is. Really. Madison nodded, and Carter kissed her, slow and deep and full of promise. When they finally returned to their suite, Madison felt lighter than she had in weeks. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The final day of the retreat was a shareholders' presentation. Carter was scheduled to speak, and Madison sat in the audience, watching him command the room with effortless confidence. But when he reached the end of his presentation, he did something unexpected. Before I close, Carter said, I want to address something personal. There's been speculation about my relationship with Madison Cole. Some of you have questioned whether it's real or a calculated move for appearances. The room went silent. Madison's heart stopped. The truth is, Carter continued, his gaze finding hers in the crowd. It started as an arrangement, a way to manage perceptions, but somewhere along the way, it became the most real thing in my life. Madison's eyes filled with tears. Madison, Carter said, his voice softer now, taught me that perfection isn't what makes someone worthy. It's honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to take risks. He paused. I'm taking a risk now, because I'm not asking her to pretend anymore. I'm asking her to stay. For real. The room erupted in applause. Margaret sat frozen, her expression unreadable. And Madison, tears streaming down her face, stood and walked to the stage. Carter met her halfway, pulling her into his arms. Was that okay? He murmured against her hair. Madison laughed through her tears. That was perfect. And as they stood there, holding each other in front of the entire board, Madison realized something. This wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning. What did you think of their story?